start to put tension on my string drawback, I was like, okay, I'm gonna smoke.
It's him. You can look at the horns when he's dead. I'm in the zone. Let the arrow go is perfect.
So when they lose their front shoulders, and, that's how you know they're smoking.
Went about 5-10 more yards. We probably went 20 yards total. Stepped over, tried getting back up. And I saw him fall up.
We rushed 4 meters rods that night. We got like 156 and something like that. And then the next day we came out to 163 even.
You're listening to the White Cat Outdoors podcast, bringing you to the table where we talk about the outdoors.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 80, and we got Tom to not shout out.
He was close.
He was.
I was thinking about it.
He leaned towards the mic, and I shut him right down. So thanks for joining us. Nick, Tom, and myself are all here.
No, thank you.
And,
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, we appreciate it. And we got a little bit of housekeeping that quick thing we want to talk about. It is episode 80, so we got 20 weeks before we reach episode 100.
That's big.
It's a big deal, yeah. It's exciting. A lot of podcasts don't last this long, and we haven't missed a week.
That in itself, I think, is just as big of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
We're 80 episodes in, and we have never missed.
Exactly.
I don't think there's a podcast out there that hasn't missed.
Yeah. So we're
And let me just reiterate, we don't have a stockpile.
Yeah.
This is coming to you weekly from the studio.
3 days before you hear it, it's coming out of our mouths.
And we've had a lot of hiccups along the way that would prevent the normal podcast crew from going week by week solid 80 podcasts through.
Yeah, the tech guy's been a little spotty in the past. Deleting
Very
episodes.
spotty.
Yeah, deleting episodes, hospitalizations.
I heard he's an alcoholic.
Yeah, he is. That's
I think so.
Recovering anyway.
Yeah.
Like 2 months sober, actually. It
So, yeah,
sounds like
we-
it's a problem.
We've been cranking out episodes for 80 weeks now, and we do everything we can to bring you guys to the table every week and not miss. So we want to do a big episode. We want to do something special for number 100. So if you guys could please leave it in the comments, get a hold of us on Exchangegram, any way you feel like getting a hold of us. If you see us around town, tell us.
Do you know what I want to do on episode 100? Give away that $500 mobile setup.
I would also love
But
So-
you know what we need to do to give that away?
What, Tom?
It's only a few more Patreon members.
Yeah.
Well, so spots are filling up quick. We've almost reached our goal of 25.
20. No, 20. That's all we want is 20.
Yeah.
Once there's 20, we're giving away a $500 stand. And then after that, every 3 months, we're giving away like all kinds of cool shit. Binoculars, harnesses, also crazy stuff.
And that could happen on the 100th episode if you guys...
I mean, we'll do it before if you guys are that
Yeah.
badass.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, kind of a goal of mine. I want to hit it,
Yeah,
you know?
I agree.
So
We're getting close. Spots are rapidly decreasing.
let's do it.
Yeah.
So 17 cents a day, as Nick would tell you. Chance at a $500 setup of your choice.
Tough to
And there's
go
actually
wrong.
going to be some more badass gear out that's available by that time that
Yeah.
wasn't when we made it. So, like, work with us. Like, basically, we're giving a $500 voucher for mobile gear.
Yeah.
Put it that way. If you want to drop it all on a badass DS point or DS 1.0, fine, do it. If you want to do like a trophy line, Novix is dropping a new stand here tomorrow. Already
man.
dropped by the time they're listening.
Yeah.
So, I mean, options are endless. So let's do it. But yeah, we want to hear from you guys what you guys want to hear on the big 100.
And let us know sooner than later so we can line it up because, like we said, we do this every week for Sunday. So make sure you guys let us know who you want to
We
hear
might
from.
actually order or pre-record that one
Yeah.
early. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, if you guys
Doubt
give
it.
us a topic and we get a hold of somebody, we'll have to do that one early.
And,
But
I mean, shoot us anything. I will attempt to get a hold of whoever you guys want.
yeah,
Rut Daniels.
Ted Nugent, anyone.
Johnny Sins.
Yeah, I would.
I mean, as good as if he was a doctor, firefighter, policeman, I'm sure he was a hunter at
yeah.
one point.
yeah, for sure.
You're welcome for that joke. I mean, yeah, just let us know. The sky's the limit. I mean, somebody else might set some other limits, but we're going to shoot for whatever you guys want.
Yeah. So yeah, get after it. Let us know what you want to hear, and I think that's all we got to talk about before we start talking about something.
Yeah, we're getting ready to deep dive into episode 80, which is we're going to do a little bit of talking about hunting big parcels and small parcels. Well, Tom would like to do small, medium, and large parcels.
Yeah. But a lot of our audience is based in like New York, Ohio, PA.
Yeah, so it's a lot.
You're hunting a lot of 10, 20, 30, under 50 acre pieces.
Yeah, I guess
lot.
that's for reference before we get started. I think we're going to say like 50 and under is considered small, and that 100 to 1,000 is, I would say, big property. We're not going to.
I would say medium.
Yeah, but I mean, for people around here, like you find a chunk of 1,000 acre public piece, like that's a big chunk of property to hunt. Mm-hmm. That's I think what like 1,000 acres is like a quarter mile by quarter mile or something.
That does not sound right.
No, I don't know. That's just pulling out of my ass there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have no idea, but
anyways, so I guess that will be considered medium, like 100 to 1,000, and then Frank and I have some experience. Tom has some experience hunting big property when it comes to turkeys and stuff, but
yeah,
just
tens of thousands of acres that we've been on hunting in different states, but
yeah.
So we kind of really want to, and a lot of people that like are Midwest hunters, they have access to farms that are 10,000 acres, and that's just not something that people in PA and Ohio, New York, we just
really
don't have
relate
that.
to,
Yeah. There's, even if you could have that, like we just do not have that property. Even if,
I mean, you can get on public land, but hunting 14,000 of public is way different than hunting 14,000 of ag.
Yeah, for sure. And everything that we hunt right close to home is that 50-ish acres. I have a couple pieces that are 100 to 200, but for the most part, we're hunting 20-acre pieces here and there, or 40-acre pieces, and you definitely have to approach it a lot different, whereas if you have a 15,000-acre farm that you can just do whatever you want with
bomb one area and still have endless options.
Yeah. And you can prep for it early in the year so much different. And like you said, throughout the season, you can attack it from different angles and move deer out of one area and into another. You're not completely ruining your property if you mess up a hunt here, or even if you don't mess it up, if you go in and learn something, okay, I don't want to be here, I want to be over there.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say is I think we've done a really good job at making smaller parcels hunt big. Yeah. And I think the best way to do that is adding small food sources throughout the property. It can make the dynamic of the property work a lot different when there's multiple food sources. Yeah. If you're on a 20-acre piece that's got, say 2 crabapple trees, you're like food sources mean so much in the equation when setting up on deer, because there's only a few things a deer needs to survive. It's food, water, shelter, and one other thing in the rut. Yeah. That's the only thing that's on their mind. Mm-hmm. And if you've only got one small food source on your property, it's going to hunt small because that's one of the biggest parts of your equation you only have one of. Yeah. So on all of our properties, we put several small food plots throughout. Obviously, strategically placed. There you go.
Sorry.
We strategically place these food plots, with bedding and prominent wind
you
directions
really have
in
to
mind. Yeah, I'm not
look
saying
at the rest of your property and see what's going to work for it. You don't want to just randomly throw 6 food plots out there.
Yeah, this is a very calculated thing that we do. It's not, like you said, it's not like every 200 yards we put a clover food plot.
Yeah, and you might have to hunt your property for 5 years before you really figure out where you want to put these, what is the best option.
Which is what we've done too. And we added, 3 food plots this year to the one piece. And this one's right around 100 acres. So just to give you guys a heads up on that. But Tom and I have 2 main parcels we hunt. One's 115.
Before you get in there, I wanted to just say something real quick.
Go for it.
I guess ideally, if you are setting up your property for whitetail, as far as food goes, if like I said, this is a managed piece of property strictly for whitetail, they say the recommended or the perfect ratio is 20% food. So if you have 100 acres, you would want 20 acres of that to be food. So and that's I'm not saying that's food plots.
Yeah.
If you have an apple orchard,
browse,
browse, an oak flat,
we're not saying you have to plant that much. But I think it's important, and something we've done is breaking that say to 20 acre piece. Take that 2 acre percent, like that 10%, and space it across your property. You know, if you say you've got like a little apple orchard over here, don't make an 1.5 acre food plot on one end of the property and call it good and hit your 10%. Like do some smaller plots with turnips and clover and different things.
Yeah, then it'll hunt a lot bigger, like you were saying, because if you've got 3 people that want to hunt this 100 acre piece or 50 acre piece, you can send someone over here and someone over here and someone over here, and you're not wasting 2 people's time because the deer are just gonna filter through their bedding and over to that one food plot in the evening.
Yeah, which I think a lot of people like us have access to, 20, 40, 60, 100 acre pieces, and it's the whole family that hunts it.
Yeah.
And when you've got one field to sit on, or one bedding area, like bedding area is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
But I think we've targeted putting food sources on property, and it's really helped in just breaking them up to give more opportunities on a small piece. So I used to be more tuck myself away into the thick, but I've noticed I like to be closer to food. I don't always sit right on food, but I like
that's more of a situational thing for me, depending on the time of year and just the piece in general. That's another one of those things you really just have to know your piece.
It's always part of my equation on where I end up.
Yeah, for sure.
How close I sit, and that's another thing. Even with a small piece, it's that food source. Just because you put all those food plots doesn't mean you're necessarily sitting on all those food plots.
Yeah,
it can just be a part of an equation. Like instead of maybe you have a buck that it's a mature buck that's only coming out right at the crack, like right before sundown, and you put a small food plot not far off his bedding, it could potentially get him up earlier because he's still deep in the woods. He can stop, browse a little bit, and then move on to a bigger field.
Yeah,
you can
or
set
if
up an
he's
ambush.
coming out, like you said, right at dark, don't hunt the food plot.
Yeah.
Back up closer to him because he's going to get close to the food plot and then wait.
He's going to sit in that staging area.
Yeah. So don't hunt the food plot, just back off of it and, like you said, hunt that staging area for those more mature bucks that are a little smarter than every forkhorn that wants to run out into the food plot at 4:30.
Yeah, get a lot of those.
Definitely a lot of those.
Makes for a fun hunt.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does.
I'd like to see them. I think it's tough for us to talk too much on public property because that's just not our style, especially in Pennsylvania. Like we hunt public when we leave the state, but Pennsylvania,
we have a lot of public
there's a ton
land,
of public.
But it's since we are at home here, we have so many private pieces that we can access.
Which I think anybody can drive around and try and get access to property. To like Tom and I mean, I know you're the same way. Like spend a lot of time in the summertime just going door to door, trying to get permission on other properties. And Tom and I have also what we try and do is if you get permission on one, or say you own a small parcel, do what you can to work on getting the properties that connect.
Yeah.
Those turkeys, the first morning Tom and I got last year, we were sitting on a neighbor's property that he gives us permission to sit down there. Not to say that we couldn't have killed him in the woods like we did the next day.
We were on the property line.
Yeah, but he gave us permission.
Into his field, yeah.
He gave us permission to set up decoys and do his thing there. And then the property we hunt here in Pennsylvania, we have permission to be on the properties beside us. And it just, and we work with them too,
And that's definitely another thing that you want to think about when you have your small piece. You have your 10-acre slice out of the whole square. Look at what's everyone else is doing around you. If all of your neighbors just have, if they're not hunters, or if there's farms around you, that will drastically change how you want to set up your property. If the neighboring 40 acres is all just thick, nasty bedding, well, you don't really need to have a bunch of bedding right there on your property. You want something to pull them out of the bedding.
Or if there's nothing but corn around you, don't waste your time planting corn. Plant beans.
Yeah, they're not going to
turnips.
leave 100 acres of corn to come to your acre and a half of corn.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. They're not going to do it.
So you just got to be smart. And I think Owen Zimmer brought up that last year when we talked to him about like setting your property up with what nobody else in your area has.
And it makes your property seem a lot bigger as far as from a hunting standpoint, when you incorporate, whether you have permission or not to be on other pieces, but if you incorporate other pieces into your plan.
Yeah, just from e-scouting.
Yeah.
If you, just because you can't, say your neighbor is an anti-hunter, and he just happens to have gorgeous bedding on his property.
You can still utilize that property as part of your
set
equation.
up the food on your property and hunt, try and figure out which way the deer are traveling through there and set up on that. Mm-hmm. So that's actually a really good point. Using other parcels, like learning other parcels around you, to make your property seem bigger when hunting. One of our buddies I know, he gets permission just to shed hunt properties. He has no intentions of hunting it because he knows he can't get that permission, but a lot of times you can get permission to shed hunt, and what he's doing is scouting it.
Yeah.
He's looking for the bedding, he's looking for food sources, looking for travel corridors, and it helps him plan his hunts on properties he can hunt.
Yeah.
So that's a little pro tip, is if you can't get on there to hunt, see if you can't look for shed antlers. And that's another point he makes. He doesn't shed hunt. He asks to look for he looks for shed antlers. He lives in a very liberal area.
You can't say hunt.
Yeah. So
Ask to coyote hunt too. Not many farmers will tell you no, you can't hunt coyotes.
Yeah.
and it just gives you another opportunity to scout a property that borders yours. Tom and I have, our Onyx is littered with little markers for access for coyotes.
Yeah, definitely.
So
Well, Nick, how did we want to jump into this?
well, we already jumped in. That's more like our small. What were you saying?
I was going to say that was like food plot talk. We didn't really talk about, I guess.
That's prepping parcels and prepping for the season. I guess another thing for me too, which I'm not a master at this, we should probably bring Scott on to talk more about cameras and how effectively using cameras on big parcels versus smaller parcels. I think a big thing is like if you're on a smaller piece, I feel like food sources is more. It's going to generate a better idea of what you've got versus like if you're, say, on public and you've got over 10,000 acres, like it's tough to go to a food source. It's more, it's more travel corridors, I would think. But again, I don't hunt big parcels, so maybe we need to talk to somebody that does that. Because I've never set up cameras on big parcels before.
No,
That's
I've
one thing
hunted big parcels, but I've never. Everything I do on big land is all e-scouting, or once I'm there, just a little bit of driving around, or when I'm hunting, walking around. Like when we were out in Nebraska, we were hunting. I don't even know how many. It's over 100,000 acres where we were at, but
So it's more small parcel, I would say.
yeah. So
They start doing square miles instead of acres.
yeah, exactly. So it was basically all e-scouting beforehand, and then we got out there, and the whole time I'm walking through the woods, I'm assessing everything and still e-scouting while I'm there, just looking at different spots to see what I want to go look at. So e-scouting has definitely really, really changed out-of-state hunting for everybody.
I think I think you can use the e-scouting to almost break a big parcel into smaller parcels, which I think, and I don't know if anybody else does this, but I know I do because I'm so used to small parcels.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's just because that's what we're used to.
Yeah, I'm
so
used
that's
to
how we try to think about them.
I'm used to small parcels. I've done well on small parcels. So when I do venture out into these bigger parcels, what I will do is I take the map and I break it up into small parcels essentially, and very quickly, what do you got going on over there? It's like spilled beer all over his shirt, and he's
Man.
Anyway, so I break it up into smaller, more manageable parcels to look at basically, and quickly go over if I see different things, like if I see bedding in one area, or maybe a food source deep on there, like work with that instead.
Yeah, because looking at 100,000 acres is intimidating, and there's no way you're going to effectively look at all of that.
Exactly.
You almost have to break it down if you're going on like a short trip. If it's property that you can hunt all the time, then you can work it differently. But if you're going out of state for a week, you can't effectively look at all those areas, so you have to break it down and look at 100 acres here, 100 acres there, or 1,000 acres. You have to make it manageable for your time if you're going out of state.
Well, I mean, that's how when you and I went to Ohio, and when all of us went to Ohio for turkey hunting, basically, as broad as it gets, you first start with what state do you want to go to?
Yeah.
And then once you narrow the state down, it's like, what part of the state do you want to go to? And then when you get to the part of the state, it's like, what state forest do I want to end up in?
Yeah.
And you just keep breaking it down into manageable chunks.
Yeah.
And eventually you get down to, okay, we've got 3 days. I'm going to spend my 3 days on this 500 acres.
Yeah.
And the first day is going to be a lot of walking and looking, like boots on the ground. Let's solidify what I saw on the map.
Yeah.
And then the next 2 days is just balls to the wall. Actually, we got lucky enough to get on birds first morning, and we pretty much just hunted that on our way through.
Yeah.
But I think a big part of hunting big parcels is breaking it into small chunks.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know for me personally, even my setup, I think is going to change now that because I gave a fair shake at a saddle. I am not one of the gurus that's like, screw hang-ons because saddles are better. I don't believe that. I think that both of them have their time and place.
Yeah.
And I think for those big parcels where I have no clue where I may end up, I do like my saddle for that.
Yeah.
But when I'm going to any property that I know, and I know that there's a tree, like the majority of the trees I can get my lock on into, I'm taking my lock on because I think it's more comfortable and I move less in a lock on.
Yeah.
It's not that your saddle is uncomfortable, but I know I personally move way more in a saddle just because it's just easy to pivot.
Yeah. You just get bored, and
Yeah.
it's like when you're sitting on a bar stool, you start kicking your feet or whatever.
Yeah.
You
Spinning it in circles. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exact same. That's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So, Tommy.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to break down how I hunt, medium parcels.
Yeah, do it. You've had a lot of success on those medium-sized parcels.
So when I think of medium parcel lands, I think of our hunting camp. And let me tell you, I know that property. So when I go up there now, it's kind of like just going to Old Faithful. Like where the deer were last year, they're going to be there this year. They're going to be there next year. They're going to be there the year after that. But, going into it green, I think the best way to go about it is I don't really like to spend all of my time walking throughout the woods that I'm just getting ready to hunt. 'Cause I think that puts your scent all over the woods and lets the deer know, okay, something's up. Especially if it's in an area like when I hunt public land, I like to hunt where other people aren't hunting. So I like to go through something like when we were turkey hunting, it was like we crossed 3 ravines to get to our first spot. Just
a body of water is a good barrier. Swamps.
so if you're
like
hunting
that.
an area that people aren't typically, there's not human scent in that area, I don't want to walk all over the place putting my human scent in that area because then they're immediately going to know, okay, something's up. What I like to do is very first night, I like to sit in a spot. It doesn't have to be an open field. But an open field works. Just an area where you can see a long ways in
Little observation set.
all different directions. So like day one, I'll sit in an open field or a big flat oak flat where you can see a couple 100 yards in every direction. And I mean, the goal that day is not to put an arrow in something. The goal is to figure out where these deer are coming from, where they're going. And then, so like day 2, you say, okay, last night, most of my deer came out of this bottom corner. So then you go down to that bottom corner and maybe tuck yourself in to the woods, 40, 50 yards and go from there. You kind of chase the activity, you set up where you can see and you say, okay, this is where they're coming out. You go down to where they're coming out and then you hone in a little bit closer and you keep getting closer and closer. And that's, I think, a really good way to hunt a new piece of property that you're not familiar with.
Let me ask you this.
That applies for like any size chunk, really.
Yeah,
Do you carry binoculars when you deer hunt?
absolutely.
So how much do binoculars play into your planning when you're sitting those observation sits? Like, are you somebody that will glass for hours while hunting? Not like an observation? No? Okay. I didn't know like how far, because I know a couple of the places at camp you can see, I know one stand in particular, I can see deer at 700 yards.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're talking. But no, I'm not the guy that's got the binos up to his eyes the entire hunt. I'll pull the binos out, if I see movement or if I see a deer. But I have a pretty good sense of sight. I don't need binos up to like 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
So anything outside of that, then I break them out. But
Put your reading glasses on for anything out that far.
Yeah. Get the bifocals on.
I'm good at picking out movement, but my eyes tend to lose focus really easily. Like when staring at like trees and stuff, I can.
Everything looks like a deer. Every deer starts to look like a tree.
I just get my eyes just get blurry. Like they like lose focus quickly.
see, I don't have that problem. If I see a deer, I'm honed
It's like
in
a
on
tractor beam.
it. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I can spot the movement really, really well. But if that deer doesn't move and I stare at that spot, within a minute, my eyes start getting all fuzzy.
Once I lock in on that deer,
that's what the binoculars help me with. They don't get fuzzy because I can literally just focus the binocular right in on it. But I think Frank, I know you do, but Tom doesn't wear a bino harness.
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
So your binos are like strapped to your chest all day?
Right to my chest.
Okay. Okay. I didn't realize you did that.
Yeah.
Because like that's another thing. Like I used to just throw my binos in my backpack and then strap my backpack to the back of the tree.
And then you see a deer and you're like reaching around the back of the tree trying to get your bino. Yeah, I've been there.
So it was like 2 years ago. I started carrying them in a harness like right on my chest.
Yeah, mine just have a little. It's like a book bag strap type deal that I wear like backwards from how you'd wear a book bag.
Gotcha. I got a T&K one. It's pretty nice.
So that's how I go about it. But, like I said, if you're hunting a property that like I know our hunting camp pretty well, and usually I hunt a week there in the rut. I'm not going to go up there and scout, 2 days of my hunting. I'm like, this is what happened last year. I'm going to, instead of wasting a day or two scouting or walking all over the place, putting my scent everywhere. Deer are very patternable. To an extent.
Yeah, to an extent.
Like, if you find an area with a big buck and you shoot that buck, the next big buck's going to move into that area. I don't, for whatever reason.
It's because big bucks, there's a few things that they need in a spot that they bed in. And every buck needs those things. They need to be able to see and smell from pretty much every direction. The least amount of like blind zone that they have on that bed, the better. And that's what makes those big mature bucks live. And when the big mature buck gets killed, the next big mature buck that's in that area is going to take over that spot because he doesn't have to compete with that big buck anymore. So I know, like, especially at camp, it's consistent, like big bucks are going to be where they were last year. And the cameras prove it.
Yeah.
And that helps, like we were saying before, it helps shrink your piece. And that's basically the goal that you want to get out of everywhere that you hunt, no matter how big or small it is. You want to shrink it down to a 20-yard radius, 30-yard radius.
Yeah.
And the more you can do that, the more effective that you can do that, the better. Because you got to get it within bow range, or if it's a rifle, within a couple 100 yards, whatever. But everything you're doing is to hone in on the smallest piece of land you possibly can.
Yeah.
So like you were saying with, you got 1,000 acres up there, but you don't waste your time scouting 800 of it. You know that this 200 acres is always producing the biggest bucks. Not to say that they'll never be on that other 800, but you know that in the rut, the majority of your time needs to be spent on this 200 acres.
Yeah, and then
But
I just want to reiterate, because like it might get a little confusing how we were talking about making your property hunt big when you have a small piece. You're taking that small food plot out there. So yeah, the property itself, when we say it hunts big, it's more to allow more people to hunt it.
You have more of those 20-yard radiuses that you want to go.
I just wanted to clarify that, because if you weren't thinking the way my brain and your brain was working, you could easily think like, wait a minute, they contradicted that a lot. No, what we're doing is setting up more opportunities for those small radiuses. That's what we meant by that. So just wanted to clarify that.
What were you going to say, Tom?
Give me you go on about something real quick.
You forget.
And I'll be right back with you guys.
Right after these brief messages. NNT Brewing.
Oh. No, yeah. So you can even do this on Onyx, because I think this is pretty cool. Just to show like how consistent whitetail travel is throughout the year. if you come across a scrape, mark it on Onyx and like the date of what it is. You go back there the next year, I guarantee that same scrape's going to open up year after year after year. Mm-hmm. And I've seen it at camp a lot where the same scrape line, even like the same licking branch, has a scrape underneath it year after year after year.
Scrapes are not like single deer specific. No. There's not a single scrape out there that is like just one deer uses it. It's a community. It's a way of communication between deer. So just because, like my dad last year, I had located a few scrapes. I
bet you those scrapes were there the year before.
Oh yeah, I know. But
probably why you were in that area.
Yeah, well, exactly. I knew the property, knew that there's usually scrapes in that area. So I did do a little bit of scouting, but calculated. It wasn't just like aimlessly walking all over the property putting scent on. I was heading to a spot to hunt, but very diligent about where I walked to see some things, essentially. Saw that those, like Tom said, those scrapes that have been opened in the past were hot at that moment. So I told my dad about it. He went in next morning, killed that buck. Those scrapes are going to open up again next year, guaranteed. Yeah. It's not obviously not going to be that deer because that one's dead.
Yeah, and it may not be a buck you want to shoot, but
there will be bucks checking those scrapes around the same time next year.
Yeah, exactly.
So like Tom said, mark them on your Onyx. Even I marked them shed hunting this year back in March on properties. If I see scrapes, because that's a really cool thing about shed hunting is, you've got the heat of the rut in November, and then it snows like a bastard up here. It preserves everything the way it was back in November.
Yeah.
So when that snow first melts and you come out there for shed hunting, the scrapes that were hot still appear almost hot. Like there's no leaves on them or anything. Like it looks open. It's very easy to pick them out in March.
Yeah.
So I mark them all, and then I guarantee, back like towards the end of July, I'm going to go back and I'm going to check those scrapes. I'm going to see if they've started to become used again, because not all scrapes get used throughout the year. Like certain scrapes
some
just
will
open
get
up
hit early, some are
there's certain scrapes that are open year round. But so I'm basically new scrapes that I mark, I always go back and check, in July and see like, okay, is this a community scrape that opens up year round? Or if it's still cold, I'll know that, okay, this is going to be opening up more closer to end of October at that point. So just little stuff like that.
Yeah. You definitely have to pay attention to all the little details of, especially when you are hunting smaller pieces. You need to know how deer are getting in and out at what time of year, so that you can, because most people in our area, like we were saying, have access to a bunch of 10, 20, 30, 40 acre pieces. Well, so if you know that this 10 acre piece doesn't heat up until the rut, don't waste your time there in early October.
Don't pull your scent everywhere.
Yeah, go somewhere else and hunt another 10 acre chunk that is hot early in October, because different spots are hot at different times of the year. For like 1,000%, that's...
Yeah, well, and that was actually last year when I was shed hunting. I was marking those scrapes out, and as I was coming out of the woods, I ran into a lady that lived across the street, and she asked what I was up to, and I told her I was shed hunting and whatnot, and she's like, oh, well, I have deer every night. They come out of behind my house and head into that field that you just walked through. I'm like, oh. And she's like, yeah, they're eating all my bushes and everything. I'm like, oh, like, do you have like a problem with deer? And she's like, yeah, like I'm like, well,
I'd love to help you
hunt. And so I actually got permission that morning from her. She's only got 5 acres, but I'm down. Like those
5 more acres that you can
parcels
hunt.
Are my bread and butter. Like that's just what we work with. So now I know from her that, I was walking across a 300 acre piece. She's saying that these deer come out of her backyard and cross over into it.
Yeah.
I just narrowed my 300 acre piece down to a little tiny section.
Yeah.
And, I went in there, started trying to find some beds. I've definitely found some heavy deer trails. So like it's something I can set up on, try out this year. So.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to find those small pieces, and I've definitely noticed in our area when you do have those small pieces, a lot of times deer do feel more safe in those small pieces because they know no one's going to be bothering them.
Yeah. Well, Tom used to have that property that he hunted a lot, and I think it was only 8 acres maybe. And we had some stellar bucks up there, and just an 8 acre piece, but it's surrounded by a lot more timber.
And a lot of heavy hunting pressure around that piece.
Yeah, exactly. It was a heavy hunted piece that Tom only went into
on a northeast wind,
Yeah.
which sucked because how often do you get a northeast wind?
But you take an 8-acre piece. Tom put a food plot up in the middle. Now all of a sudden you've taken your 8-acre piece, you put a small food plot, you make that 20-yard radius a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. Deer feel really safe because everything's heavily hunted.
Yeah.
And it worked out for Tom. So he doesn't hunt it anymore, but you can take that and apply it to any small piece.
Yeah, for sure.
But
So I guess like the basic thing that you want to do is set up your property so that it's as big as possible for pulling deer in, and then set it up so that it's also as small as possible so that you can get an arrow into something.
yeah, you want to set up a lot of small opportunities. I think is the best way to. You want to set up as many small locations on your property, and if you have a large piece, you don't need as many. You can, like you said, focus in on a small portion. I was thinking of parcel and portion at the same time. Came out portion. But yeah, then you have like your small pieces that we just load with small little areas, little food plots.
Mm-hmm. And if you are fortunate enough to have, over 1,000 acres, I know a lot of people that manage property will set aside, X amount of land as a sanctuary where under no circumstances you don't, unless you're obviously tracking a wounded deer, but you don't turkey hunt that area, you don't shed hunt that area, you don't deer hunt that area. That area is totally left alone, so no human scent gets in that area. Bucks and doe feel totally comfortable in that area, and you just leave it alone.
Mm-hmm. And just
That's
hunt
huge.
the outside.
Yeah. So if you are fortunate enough to have that much land where you can sacrifice.
How many bucks have been killed in the last 5 years within 100 yards of that sanctuary?
Yeah. A lot of them.
Yeah. So it just goes to show, like, you don't it's not like like you said, if you're fortunate enough to have that kind of property, it's good to set off a few acres and just make it the sanctuary. Obviously, it has to be. You don't want to pick, a field with a 2-acre pond and call that your sanctuary. It has to be the right setup. It needs to be thick, nasty property for the deer to feel safe
with the
in.
right stuff
Yeah,
around
you can't
it.
pick out like a big, open field and say, "Oh, that's the sanctuary. We don't go near it."
Yeah, don't hunt that field.
Yeah, it's got to be calculated.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I would say that's a wrap on things.
I think we nailed it.
Like I said, we're trying again. If you guys were getting real close to 100, 20 weeks is going to sneak up on us really quick.
Yeah,
so
it will.
We want to do something big for you
I
guys.
bet 20 weeks will probably bring us into archery season. I bet we'll
5
be
months.
Yeah, so we'll be in.
No,
we'll
it's going to be
rifle.
it's going to be like muzzleloader.
Yeah, but still, it'll sneak up on us.
Whatever you guys want. I can't guarantee we'll do it, but we will try.
We're definitely gonna try.
And who knows? Maybe we could, if we get like a couple really good ideas, we'll just release a few badass episodes like all in week 100. I don't care.
That'd be great.
We're doing it for you guys, so whatever you guys want, you tell us, and we will do whatever we can to make it happen.
For sure.
Anything closing remarks from Tommy Boy over there?
No, I think we nailed it.
All right. It's hot out there, but make sure you guys are all still getting outside.